Welcome back to another episode. After one of our recent videos on de-dollarization launched in early May, we noticed a number of articles and statements coming out downplaying the advent of de-dollarization. But the truth is that it's real, it's occurring, and we're going to examine the data that supports claims of continuing dollar supremacy and see if it meets muster. By the end of this video, we think you'll agree that de-dollarization is happening and gold and silver will have an important place in the future. But first, let's examine some of the claims coming from various news sources that de-dollarization is not a serious threat to the US dollar. Well, it's an interesting statement, and some of those sources cite data saying the total global reserves of US dollars are about 70% and sometimes even higher. This is quite lofty and would be encouraging for the US dollar if it were true. Yet the IMF, International Monetary Fund, released data that shows as of Q4 2022, just over 58% of global reserves are held in the US dollar. That's a far cry from the 70 to 90%, and close examination reveals that data was cherry-picked, sometimes stopping short in 2019, excluding the most recent data. We think this is a mistake, given that de-dollarization is recently accelerating, and one of the catalysts were sanctions levied against Russia for invading Ukraine in 2022. Another claim that the US dollar will not lose its preeminence is that the US GDP is just too big. No one can come close to touching the US, so we're not in any danger. Well, according to multiple sources, the US GDP is 23.3 trillion in US dollars, and China comes in second place at 17.7 trillion. When you add the original countries in the BRICS coalition, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, their combined GDP is over $24.5 trillion. This is to say nothing of the recent overtures from other countries around the globe who are interested in what BRICS is doing. Some people have reported that the countries pushing de-dollarization already don't trade in the US dollar. Again, not a true statement. Russian use of the yuan was less than 0.25% in 2020, and now it's over 2.5%. Argentina switched to using the yuan to pay for over $1 billion worth of imports just this past April. Other countries that are still doing business with Russia, even smaller ones like Bangladesh, are forced to switch from the dollar to another currency because of sanctions. Iraq, Pakistan, Thailand, all are discussing making payments in another currency, usually the yuan. And this is a switch from using the dollar. There were also some statements pointing to the euro as a failed attempt to become a reserve currency. The reason if Europe couldn't do it, then what chance does a BRICS coalition stand? Well, it's an interesting stance to take because the number 2 reserve currency in the world is actually the euro. And after the euro was introduced, it ate into the dollars standing around the world. You can look at the charts yourself on the IMF's website and see that in 2002, the US dollar's share in global foreign exchange reserves dropped almost immediately and continued to decline for about a decade. What happened in 2002? Well, January 1st, 2002 is when coins and banknotes were launched for the euro, and the biggest cash changeover took place in 12 EU countries. It's not so much that the euro failed as it just went about as far as it could because the petrodollar agreement still rules the world. And as we said in our last video, if the Saudis agree to accept a new basket currency that BRICS comes up with in exchange for oil, it ends the petrodollar. And the petrodollar is a foundational piece of the dollar's dominance. None of the claims dismissing de-dollarization really do a good job of addressing this concern. Mostly they just ignore it. But this is real. The Saudis have already indicated that they are willing to consider other currencies. And historically, no country has held global currency reserve status for very long. The average is actually 94 years. The US dollar has been the reserve currency for the past 102 years. Since the mid-1400s, there have been a total of 6 major reserve currencies. Why are people resistant to the idea that dollar dominance is coming to an end? Probably because that time span for a country to hold a reserve currency is too long. It outlives people, seems distant. But we're right at the age where a currency tends to lose its king of the hill status. And if we believe that history repeats, and we can see the writing on the wall, then we shouldn't listen to the ostriches who buried their heads in the sand. So, what happens as de-dollarization occurs? Well, there are 2 ways this will probably play out. Either slowly until erosion is complete, or slowly at first then very suddenly, like a mudslide caused by excessive rain and poor foundations. In both scenarios, holding gold is expected to continue to act as a store of wealth admirably, as it historically has done so through prior transitions. In addition, we would expect the US dollar to weaken over time as de-dollarization trends continue. If prior correlations hold, then a weaker US dollar would result in a stronger gold price. Not to mention, the BRICS currency under proposal is expected to be backed by a basket of commodities, including gold, meaning gold could become more valuable in that manner as well. In our last video, we stated silver is not expected to be a component of that basket of commodities. Of course, that's not confirmed. Part of the reason we're uncertain silver would be included is because there's a large deficit of silver, and much of the mined silver has been used in industrial applications. But even if it's not, silver has a habit of following gold's price movements over time. And any rise in the value of gold should also be beneficial to silver bugs if established trends continue in the future. That's all we have for you today. We hope you'll like, subscribe, or share with a friend. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.